Cut City Connect, Cut City Connect, Cut City Connect.
Yeah.
Houston Rocket News, everything you need. You know we keep it in check. Scores, interviews, and player stats. Yo, we keep it in check. Subscribe to see what's next.
Go ahead.
It's Cut City Connect.
It's been a little minute. This is your boy TJ, and unfortunately, guys, my main man AP could not be here today. My main man came down with a sickness. Y'all keep him in prayer. But he's going to be okay. Guys, I got a special guest today, and his name is Anthony Goods. And judging by last name, he's got all the information. So I'm gonna leave it to you. You can introduce yourself to the populace, my man.
Yeah, man. I'm Anthony Goods, an assistant coach at Arkansas State currently. I spent the last 5 years prior in the front office with the Detroit Pistons, and prior to that, 11-year career, played overseas, played in the D League, which is now the G League, and my college years were spent at Stanford University. All the way back before that, I was from Corona, California, east of LA, and yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be on the show and ready to talk shop.
Let's talk shop, my man. All right, so you mentioned Stanford. Interesting. So this first segment, I want to go over your D League and pro playing career, right? So my first question is, okay, so you came out of Stanford and jumped into the D League, as you stated now was the G League, with teams like the Bakersfield Jam, the Dakota Wizards, and the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. What was the biggest adjustment for you going from college to the pro game, and what's one moment of lesson from those years that sticks with you today?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference for me was the probably the 3-point line. I think I was a shooter in college, and the 3-point line in college was much shorter back then compared to where the NBA line is. So, I think the college line back then might have been a little over 20 feet, and the NBA 3-point line was 23.9, I believe. So, just that difference alone, for a shooter was tough. Even though after college you're shooting a bunch of reps, it's different because you weren't getting game reps yet. So I think that was the biggest difference for me, along with like the speed and just the overall talent level. But yeah, the D League, especially back then, even now, it was a very, very athletic league, and I think even more so back then, probably because we didn't have two ways and things of that nature. You had a lot of talented guys that could have been playing at a higher level overseas, but didn't want to go over there. And, everybody was chasing that call up. So it kept a lot of guys home. And I think there were only 16 teams in the league. So, you can imagine, with only 16 teams, a lot of talent stayed home. So it was a competitive league back then.
Absolutely. Wow. You got, like you said, 16 teams, a lot of players are staying at home. You got to think about it. And guys put it in this perspective that, these leagues are very, very competitive. And everyone has aspiring dreams of making it to the NBA. And that right there lets you know how tough it is to even make it in the NBA, let alone the G League or the D League. So that's a very interesting fact right there. So my next question for you, Mr. Goods, playing 11 years overseas across 9 countries is an absolutely incredible journey. How did the style of play and culture differ from the D League NBA environment? And what skills or habits helped you last that long as a pro?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, it's a completely different game in regards to the rules when you start, going across the water, as far as like there's no defensive 3 seconds. The pace is a lot slower, especially back then. A lot more teams were trying to, punch it into the bigs and kind of playing off of that. So the pace, the spacing, everything was just completely different. I think the what allowed me to last as long as I did, I think it was work ethic, humility, and coachability. When you get overseas, you don't have the resources, you don't get shoes, you don't get all of those things that you're used to in the States. So you have to move with humility and understand, why you're there. You're there to obviously because it's your job, but you have whatever aspirations you have. And then I think that, just there's going to be a language barrier. There's a cultural barrier that, you're not going to vibe with your coaches in the same way. And, your GMs are going to get rid of you if you're in a slump and things like that. So, being coachable is extremely important. And then lastly, like going back to the work ethic, you're not going to have the same staff that you had in the States. You don't have guys to rebound for you. You got guys partner shooting and whatnot. So you got to find ways to keep yourself healthy, keep yourself in shape, and to keep your own game sharp. So I think, a combination of all three of those things are the reason myself as well as others were able to, build a career overseas.
Absolutely, man. I tell you, from this area alone, we have two right now that's very successful overseas. One, his name is Jordan Ivy Curry. The other one, his name is Marcus Williams.
Mm-hmm.
They are both two players from this area who tried out in the NBA. Jordan, he got an opportunity with the Bucks, and Marcus played for the Miami Heat summer league team. So I think that within itself is a solid feat. But I think them too had to understand that when you go from here, like you said, across the water, it's a huge adjustment, and you have to adjust on the fly a lot. So that's an interesting perspective for those who want to play overseas as well, because we do have guys who watch this show who also want to play overseas. It is very competitive overseas as well, guys. So take that into consideration. So my third question, within this segment, looking back as a former player who's now a coach and a scout, what do you wish you had known or done differently during your D League and overseas days that would have accelerated your transition out of playing?
I think, there's a lot of things that I learned just becoming a scout in general that, would have helped my playing career. And I think a lot of it falls on the defensive end and effort based. I was caught up in scoring and things like that. But I think when you're playing overseas, your focus is making as much money as possible, and then your gauge for that is whoever's signing these big contracts, and you kind of tie that to, oh, they're scoring the ball. You don't really pay attention to the other impact that they're making. But yeah, I think that once you really start to step in these rooms and see how decision makers are making decisions, you start to look back and at your own career and see where you came up short, and holding yourself accountability for your shortcomings, if you want to call them that. But one thing I did do a good job of that I think helped me transition out of basketball is I played on a lot of teams, and I stayed in touch with a lot of people. I think social media makes it a lot easier to tap in with the network that you have. I think it's also important to tap in with people outside of social media, and to maintain those relationships. But I felt like I was good to people when I was around them, and I did a decent job of maintaining relationships that ultimately helped me once I transitioned out and got into scouting. Because the saying goes like, you know um, people will always remember how you made them feel. So I think it's important to just be a good human being, as simple as it sounds. I don't think a lot of people are cognizant of that, but it can really go a long way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can attest to that. Um, I can say I had the luxury of being one of those guys to say, I want to expand my network. That's what led to me reaching out to you. Be and Twitter X is very beneficial based off of how you use it. And I do believe that with this podcast, it can be a hub to connect with guys. Clutch City Connect. Um, and like I say, I thank you for coming on the show. I said it out, in the beginning before we recorded. But I've been able to connect with a lot of guys. Rafael Barlow, who's an international scout for the Mavericks. I've been able to connect with Phil Handy. He was my mentor's mentor way back then in Sacramento, California. So I got to reach out to him and, got to get some knowledge and understanding of basketball on the player development side. So it is definitely based on how you use social media that can help benefit you. But you mentioned the word transition, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's transition to pro scouting. And you were a hybrid scout, right? So my question for you, my three, number one, you made the jump from player to NBA scout and draft scouting consultant with the Pistons. What was the end or first opportunity that got your foot in the door? And how did your playing background help or sometimes hinder you in that hybrid role?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't have gotten into the front office if it wasn't for Johnny Dawkins, the head coach of the South Central Florida. He was my head coach at Stanford. Him and I stayed in touch. I was always in touch with him and his kids over the years. And I called him up, let him know what I was trying to do. I was reaching out to down there every NBA team at that point, and he had a relationship with Troy Weaver, and he put the call in, and Troy reached out to me, and the rest was history. So again, I think just maintaining genuine connections, I think is important. So I owe Coach Dawkins everything, not only just for my playing career, but even after my career. I mean, he's done a lot for me. Forever in debt to him. But and I think just being a former player, as I said before, just your network is everything. Like, people think that scouting is like, writing reports and, building the board and all that other stuff. Like, they don't care about that, man. That's part of the job. Don't get me wrong, but they want to, they are hiring scouts to go out and get information. You're there to collect data, and you need to get intel. You need to find out who these players really are and know them front and back. And a lot of that is outside of what they do on the court. So I think being a player, I had a lot of teammates, and as you get older, they start moving into different jobs and start coaching. So I was able to get a lot of information on players just through my network of having teammates in different places, former teammates, retired teammates, even some of my coaches. They continue to move around. So I think that just having like, it helps being a player and having an eye for the game and different things like that. But like I said, like, the evaluation piece is secondary. Like, the most important piece is, can you get them information? Because the GM ain't got time to be calling all over the world for all of these different players that they might not draft. That's your job as a scout. So you need to go and get that intel. So I think that's the most important piece.
As you stated, intel is very important. These NBA teams, guys, want to know who these players are. Like you said, front, back, side to side, like the song from UGK. This is something that is extremely important to know, guys. So my next question, Mr. Goods, is as a hybrid scout, you were evaluating talent from multiple angles. What unique perspective did you bring that traditional scouts who didn't play at a high level might miss?
Um, I think what I brought was, I guess, basically translation, because I played overseas, and I also played in the States. I was in college. I transitioned to the pro level. I played. I had some opportunities to play against NBA players in the NBA setting, that type of thing. So, I saw it firsthand. from a lot of different angles. So I think now, even though I'm many years removed from those times, I'm able to kind of translate it a little more closely than, I guess the average, basketball mind. So I think that's kind of one of my most valuable traits is I'm able to translate, what I'm seeing across different levels and then, provide my own perspective. And not saying that anybody else can't, but, I think that you just do it with a different confidence after you've lived, certain certain scenarios or certain levels of play.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to say your perspective is extremely good, guys. Make sure you go and check out Mr. Anthony Goods on YouTube, where he gives you an insight on a lot of different variables when it comes to scouting. I got to watch Mr. Goods YouTube videos, and I say that they're all good, they're all knowledgeable, very sound, and the thing that I like is very transparent. You're letting people know what needs to be known when you're stepping into these roles. You're not bullcorning around, as they say down here, old school folk. So it's definitely something that I like and that I appreciate. Because you don't have to say any of this information. You don't have to give no one any information.
Yeah.
But you're choosing. You're choosing to do that because you want to help and inspire. And I like that. It's very motivational, especially for me. So my next question, okay, walk us through a typical day a week in the life of an NBA scout, right? Especially during the pre-draft process, summer league, or international circuits. What's the most underrated part of the job that fans don't understand? And also, I'll add a little bit to this. What is the grassroots scouting department like?
Yeah. Yeah, there's I mean, you're a 24-hour day in the life of a scout looks different depending on what part of the year it is, what type of scout they are, in regards to like what they're scouting. I think that typically, your college scouts, your busiest time is pretty much during the season. You're flying to various games, and you're catching a lot of early flights. You fly in, get prepared, go watch the college game. You usually get in there hour and a half, 2 hours before. Try to talk to some coaches, watch the guys warm up, watch the game, write your reports, hop back on the flight the next morning. So it can get pretty intense. What I mean? Your sleep is a little jacked up because you're staying up late. Games don't really end till 10 o'clock. Getting to bed around 11, close to midnight, and then you're back up at 4 a.m. to catch a 6 a.m. flight. So your sleep gets messed up. It's the same situation with international and pro as well. Pro, there's just a lot more games, but you're flying into major cities, so it's a little easier to get in and out. Yeah, and then grassroots is just a whole nother beast. I mean, I think the grassroots scouts they got their hands cut out or their work cut out for them a lot, especially in the summer. Even during the season as well, you're following a lot of these games, and you're flying to what you can fly to in regards to what's certified, and then the rest you're just watching a lot on tape and trying to prepare the front office for the future classes that are coming, because that's extremely important. Because when you see a team trading their first round pick in 2029 or 2030, it's not like, oh, let's just pick a year and trade it. Like, they know, or they can anticipate what kind of talent is coming up the line, because of their grassroots scouts. So, a lot of these moves that people see, people kind of just think, oh, they're just throwing picks in the bag. But nah, it's like they have some rough idea of what's in the bag. A lot of times, I'm not gonna say every time, but that's what your high school scouts are for, and that's why it's good to have, a very, I guess, a productive, grassroots department that is able to get you these lists and kind of keep you up to date on how the game is evolving, class to class.
Interesting. So, just to add a little bit more to this, I apologize for this,
No, you good.
but do you think that within what you stated that maybe, especially with teams sometimes trading a first round pick, future in the future, right? That some teams are maybe a little bit more thorough when it comes to grassroots scouting than others, or
Yeah.
that it's something where okay, I'm giving this first round pick up because it doesn't matter who's in this class, but it's more so about who I'm trading for in the now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, some teams are better at scouting in general. Some teams just have more scouts, period. And then some teams just don't have good scouts. Like, not everybody's a good scout. Like, in anybody's job, I'm sure it's your job. Like, you got some people that are there just clocking in, you know what I mean, and just trying to get by the day, and you got people like that at the NBA level too. They're not there really trying to work. They're not ambitious. They're just there, because of the access or whatever it may be. And, it's unfortunate. And the tough part is for upper management, you don't have time all the time to really like fact check or, really do your due diligence in regards to, what this player is doing, because now the information is so abundant. Yeah, I could easily pull up a 1 through 60 list and just steal a mock draft or steal a class of 2028 ranking, from ESPN and just mix a couple names. You could fake the work easily. And I think there are some scouts out there that fake the work. And that's what's unfortunate, and you don't really know who's doing it until you're kind of inside. I think scouts probably have a little more insight as to who's doing what as opposed to upper management, because they just don't have the time. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I tell people, it's just like any other job. You get in here, you got people that are um, in a higher position and maybe don't have the same knowledge as people in a lower position. You got people that are in a lower position that are working hard. You got some other people that's lazy. It's just like any other job, any other business. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in there is not, going, 100 miles an hour. So it's just one of those things. You just gotta hope you got the right people in the building, and that's why they don't let a lot of people in the building, because it's hard to get the right ones.
Wow, wow, that's some good stuff, my man. Okay, so let's talk about you becoming a D1 assistant coach at Arkansas State, right?
Yeah.
So, after years in scouting and front offices, what made you decide it was time to move into college coaching with Arkansas State under Coach Ryan Pannone, right?
hmm
Ryan Pannone. What excited you most about this next chapter?
Well, I was always curious about college coaching. You know what I mean? I think just as a player, you once you retire, you're just looking for something that's going to give you that same feeling as playing. Um, so I felt like, man, I was always curious about coaching. I thought coaching was probably going to be the closest thing to playing that I could do. So after about 4 years of scouting, I was like, man, maybe this is a change I want to do, but I wasn't going to make that change for anybody. Like, the only coaches I thought I would leave for was probably Coach Dawkins. You know what I mean? And I met Coach Pannone, and I heard a lot of great things about him. I knew how hot his name was. A lot of people spoke highly of him, but after I got to know him and meet him, I thought the world of him as a person. And my thing is like, I don't care what I want to. I don't care what I'm doing. I want to do it around good people. I'm not the type of person that likes to be around, people that are going to drain your energy, man. And I think I thought back then, even though I didn't know him, super extensively, I'd known him for like a year prior, year and a half prior. But I felt like I knew enough that, he's a good person. He'd be a good person to work for and learn from. And I think he exceeded my expectations as a human being. He exceeded my expectations as a coach. And, it's a pleasure to work for him, and it's a privilege, honestly. Um, Coach Pannone he's everything everybody says. Like, oh, he's this basketball wizard or genius. Yeah, he's all that. But on top of that, he's a leader and a teacher for not just the players but his staff as well. And he genuinely cares about people, man. So I think the world of Coach Pannone. I mean, he's like a top 5 human being that I've met in my life, and he's for the rest of his coaching career, wherever he touches, is gonna have success because of it.
Absolutely. And I gotta say this, man. Just listen to you talk. You sound a lot like as a coach down here that I'm really close with. He's Sam Houston State's assistant
Okay.
basketball coach. His name is Anthony Fobb.
Hmm.
And you sound a lot like him. Just talking to him, having him on the podcast a little while ago, um, under the coach that he's under. Um, Shout out to those two guys. They were able to get me and Aaron a free um, ticket to watch the Ballad of Piney Woods between SFA and Sam Houston.
Hmm.
So it was a very interesting game. But also, too, you sound a lot like me when it comes to coaching, um, because I felt the reason to reach out to you was because of your transitions, right?
Hmm.
And that's where I want to be in life. I'm 31 years old, and unfortunately, I'm just not figuring out basketball is what I want to do. But I figured to reach out just because of what you say, how you say it, and like I say, you're an inspiration to me. Um, so I want to go out and say that. So this is my next
Appreciate it.
question. Um, How has your scouting eye translated to on the floor coaching and player development at the D1 level? Are there big differences in how you evaluate talent now versus when you were in the NBA?
Yeah, I think there are differences in the sense of like at the mid-major level, I'm not evaluating the same talent that I was evaluating before. So, and it still is. It's gotten better, obviously, because I've gone through a whole season and whatnot. But it's still tough to determine, like, okay, this player is talented. I like him, but how much is he going to cost, and does it fit, our budget? I'm constantly thinking about our budget. So that's kind of the tough part because you try to be as efficient as possible when you're recruiting because you don't want to spend all your time chasing a kid that you can't get financially. So from that lens, it has changed the way I evaluate. A lot of times now I'm looking for flaws. I want a kid with flaws because if he has flaws, then he's probably gettable. I'm looking for multiple flaws and then an elite skill because that's probably, especially if it's a high school player, that's probably the high school player that we can afford to get. We're not going to get the guy that can handle, he shoots 40 from 3, he rebounds the ball, and he defends like he's going to Tennessee or somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm looking for kids that have flaws and maybe one skill that could turn into something elite. So I had to kind of change my mind in regards to what I'm looking for to fit, whatever we're actually recruiting. So, but yeah, I think that scouting, being organized, watching film, being comfortable watching hours of film. I don't think college coaches are comfortable watching hours of film, just evaluating one player. I think they're just used to moving on to the next, watching him a little bit, move on to the next. So I think that I'm thankful that I do have that skill set and that comfortability, coming from the NBA, to college, and I think it helps.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Um. So here's my next question. What's one big adjustment you've had to make going from evaluating pros and international to developing college players day to day? And also, too, I want to ask this question as well. Like I said, I'm sorry.
No.
This happens sometimes with me, but can you honestly say that maybe NIL is beneficial, but also a kind of a hindrance for coaches who are looking to get players in and actually help them develop and become good?
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think the first thing with the pros versus college players is I think the biggest difference is like there's just so much college players just don't know. You know, they're they're very green in a lot of ways, and they don't even know that they are. You know, and it's not anything to their fault. It's just being young. You know, pros or at least even some of the younger players that are international that are around older players. You know, they just kind of learn things that are forced to learn certain things about the game earlier. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is like, you know, it's just crazy how much these college players just don't know. But I think that the coaching world is in a good place, you know, with social media and the sharing of information. I think, you know, with all the shared contents and ideas, I think it's really improving coaching across the board, all over the nation. So I think that's good. And then what was the second question? Oh,
Uh,
NIL.
with,
Yeah, I
with
think NIL, it's hard to develop players long term with NIL because there's always going to be a financial component. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good that these players, you know, have money and they can go, and majority of them, probably 98% of them, will never make this amount of money in this short of time in their lives. So I think that this is a great opportunity for a lot of players to go and, you know, make money, you know, while they're in college. It does make it hard for you know, coaches to retain players and to develop them. But yeah, I just think that, you know, sometimes there is some benefit to growing where you're planted, and you know, just growing with the coach that, you know, has seen your game, you know, progress, has seen the journey, and just developing within a system. I think there's a clear path to maximize your talent within one system, as opposed to having to hop to another one, hop to another one, hop to another one, which is like what I did in my overseas career. It wasn't always easy. Like every year wasn't a good year, and it was simply because I left a good situation. You know what I'm saying? So but it's hard for these kids to turn down that money, and it's hard for the kids to have that kind of foresight.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with your sentiment there. I absolutely do. I think NIL is good. I remember being in college and not necessarily being a player, but being around a lot of the players, even at a school like Lamar University in Beaumont. Right, a lot of those
Mhm.
players were complaining that they could hardly afford anything. So just to see that they can now have money in their pockets is good. But like I say, a lot of these kids, and I'm seeing it now where some of them don't even last a year, and they're transferring every year. Uh, I think one good example for that is like Mikey Williams. I don't, and also he just went back to UCF. I think I forgot.
Dior.
Dior Johnson, but he had a track record of doing the same thing in high school. I think he went to 7 or 8 different high schools. So I don't necessarily see it as a good thing, or if a coach can actually connect with the player if they're only there for a short amount of time and then they're gone. So um, I think there's a good and a bad, of course, and
Mhm.
the scale is never truly balanced because it's always teetering. So next, while we're here talking about Arkansas State, let's talk about scouting talent, right? So when you and the Arkansas State staff are out scouting, what are the top 3 to 5 traits or intangibles you prioritize for your program? And how has that list evolved with today's transfer portal and NIL landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we evaluate is the same. I think every coach is usually looking for IQ, shooting, and toughness. Like, there's never been a coach that said, "Oh, we're too tough," or, you know, "We're too smart of a basketball team," or "We shoot the ball too well." So it's like those are like usually like the three things that we're looking for, because, you know, we play a conceptual offense, so there's going to be a lot of reads. So we do need a level of IQ, and we like guys that can shoot the floor. I mean, stretch the floor and shoot the ball. And then from a defensive perspective and offensively, we play a physical brand of basketball, offensively and defensively. Like we're hunting fouls, we're trying to put pressure on the rim, pressure on the paint. So we do need a level of toughness and the desire to initiate contact. So those are the main things that we look for. And in the portal, we're looking for the same things. It's just depending on the portal in regards to who you're retaining and who's available. That just changes the positions that you're looking for, or how many of a particular player you're trying to see. Like maybe you lost your shooters, so you need guys that are just more so wing shooters, But I think the shooting, the IQ, and the toughness is something that we expect out of everybody.
Okay. So, my next question: what type of players or skill sets best fit in Coach Pannone's system? And are you guys targeting certain international profiles or athletic development traits?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I said, we're looking guys that can think the game, and shoot it. Pannone loves to shoot a lot of threes. I think we were top 30, top 40 team in 3-point attempts per game. So Pannone loves to get them up. Um, and Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that we're looking for, man. It's just guys that can take care of the ball and then, obviously make decisions on the court. And that's not necessarily with the ball's decisions on when to screen, when to cut, when to crash, those type of things. So those are the main things that we're looking for. Like if a guy is kind of a slow processor, he's not gonna last with our team. If he has a low motor, he's not gonna last with our team. I mean, we were top 6 team, in regards to offensive pace. We play extremely fast. Yeah, it's just those type of players, like, are the type that we need.
Okay. And with saying that, how do you balance high upside projects versus ready to contribute players in today's college game?
Yeah, I think you always want to, like, I have a philosophy. Not saying this is Coach Panone's philosophy. I'm not speaking for him, but I have a philosophy that, like, you should always keep. I mean, there's 15 guys on the roster. You're not playing 15 guys in a game. You should
Absolutely.
always keep like 3 spots of developmental players, and hopefully you can retain them. There's no guarantee, but hopefully you can retain them. So I think when you look at like what are the most expensive positions on the market, it's usually point guards and bigs. So I would like to. I mean, they're going to do away with the red shirts, but as far as the developmental roles, like I'm looking for rim protection. Somebody that might be a little raw offensively. Again, we're looking for flaws. Raw offensively, but his motor is different and he can, block shots. I can work on the other things if his motor's good, right? So that's usually, I think, if I was a head coach, I'm always looking to develop rim protection. Maybe develop a point guard or develop a sniper, So that's kind of my philosophy in developing talent. But I think a lot of high school kids lack the strength to impact the college game, and that's why it takes them a little longer. So strength is probably the biggest difference from a player being able to impact the game and not, like basketball, there's art to it, but it's a science. You know what I mean? And as soon as that ball goes up, we're playing a game of physics now. And there's a lot of collisions. There's a lot of speed. There's a lot of velocity within the game. So, yeah, players that don't have the physicality to impact the game offensively or defensively, and withstand all those collisions, it's gonna be hard to get on the floor.
Absolutely. That sounds like me, especially with coaching. Hey, if you can't defend, if you can't do anything that I ask of you on the court, you're gonna sit by me. Just point blank, period. I'm one of those type of coaches. If it's something that I see that you're good at and you do it exceptionally well, I expect that of you the whole time you're on the court. And if you can't do it, you're gonna come sit by me. We're gonna talk about it. But I know in college it's a little bit different. If you can't play, you're not gonna play at all.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. And uh, very good information. Very good information. So let's talk. Let's go into the section of advice for aspiring scouts and coaches. And I fit under this banner. This is me. So, a lot of former players want to break into scouting and coaching, right? What's your practical step-by-step advice for someone with no connections? How did they actually get noticed and build credibility? You even made content on this. Please feel free to expand.
Yeah, I think the main thing is you need to have a network. Like I said, I think a lot of aspiring scouts pay too much attention on the evaluation piece.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, that is important. But I would say that the scales are 60-40, if not more, in regards to the 60 being what intel can you provide for me? And you can't provide intel without having a network. So, I would start just meeting as many people in the basketball world as possible. Like, if you're in middle school gyms, meet every middle school coach. You know what I mean? You can get to, there's a high school near everybody in the United States. Go to all the high school games, meet the whole coaching staff. You know what I'm saying? Meet the players, shoot. And then, get to AAU games, try to meet college coaches, JUCO coaches, all these guys. Like, you'd be surprised where somebody is in 5 to 10 years. But if you don't have a network, it's extremely hard to get your foot in the door, And then, yeah, the evaluation piece is the evaluation piece. Like, you got to be able to see talent and articulate what you're seeing. I think that a lot of aspiring scouts, really fall short on the articulation piece, because it's like, if you're not a former player or you haven't worked in the NBA before, it's like, why should I hire you? Don't tell me because you work hard. Everybody works hard. Okay, what else? You know what I'm saying? What value am I getting? And then, you should ask yourself, if you were an NBA team, why would you not hire you? And whatever answers you come up with, that's what you need to fix. I wouldn't hire me because I don't know enough people. I want to be a college scout and I don't know enough college coaches. All right, well, buddy, that's your answer. Go meet some college coaches somehow. You know what I mean? Meet one, go to a coach's clinic, meet some more, meet some more, meet some more. So, yeah, I think reverse engineering your faults can kind of help light your own pathway into being more prepared for when that opportunity comes. And it may never come. It's extremely difficult. There's so many people trying to get into the NBA. And there's only 30 teams. You know what I'm saying? So it's extremely hard to break in. But if you're not prepared, you'll never get the opportunity. So it's better to stay ready than having to get ready.
Right. Oh, that's my favorite saying. That's my favorite saying, my man. I like to stay ready before I get ready, because if you're already ready, you can already make it happen. So here's my next question when it comes to advice for guys like me, right? And I'm gonna change it up a little bit. So, any specific resources like books, habits, or hidden paths you recommend for young coaches or scouts trying to climb? And what are your thoughts on using synergy as a form of uh, 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 film scouting?
Yeah. I mean, I think using synergy or anywhere you could watch. I mean, you don't even really need synergy anymore. You got everybody's streaming. You can play and pause games now. Like, there's a lot of ways to do it. So, but yeah, if you got synergy and you could just watch film, I think watching the game is the best way to understand or to learn the game. I would watch the game. I would also watch coaches clinics on YouTube. Just learn the basketball game. Just learn what coaches want. Coaches are decision makers. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as a GM. Like, these college coaches, these high school coaches, like, we all talking about the same thing. We all speak the same language. So watch coaches clinics and try to learn as much as possible. And and I think that you need to understand the landscape, and and not even trying to plug my book, but I think in my book I lay out, pretty much what it is in regards to the job, what scouting really is, what to expect, how it looks, what your lifestyle is like. Like, I outline a lot of those things in the book, and it's pretty concise. But I think when you read it, and read it the second time and the third time, I think you really start to like pick up on things, and you'll have a clear picture, or clearer picture of what the job really is. So I think all of those things really help. I think as you're watching games, like, try to follow one team extensively and write reports on all the players that enter the game, and then see how that changes over the course of the year. And, you really start to pick up on different things. So, yeah, there's a lot of resources, but you really got to like eat and breathe this stuff if you don't do it for a living already, because it's easy for a scout or a coach because we're around basketball every single day, right? But if you work a 9 to 5, outside of basketball, then you got to pick up for that lost time. Somehow you can't just wake up and become a scout or become this basketball mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely agree. Definitely agree. So, um, I want to move to the last and final segment, my man. We are here. Let's talk about those Houston Rockets, right?
Hmm.
So, I want to ask you, what's your overall take on the current Rockets roster and where they're at in their contention window?
Yeah, man, I think they got a lot of great pieces. I think they had success. I think during the regular season, both offensively and defensively. They were always, I think, probably around like a top 10 team, and on both sides of the ball. Um, I think that losing Fred hurt, and now the front office is in a tough spot because, okay, Fred's coming back, but he's on the last year of his contract, I believe. So now it's like, do you deal them and try to get somebody that you can rock with a little more long term? I think that if anything, the playoffs taught us that Reed's got to improve defensively. Maybe we need another guard, that can create and shoot the ball. Yeah, so I think the Rockets, they have enough to contend, but they are going to have to make some moves. I think the core of what they have is really good, but they are going to have to make some moves, and then just trying to troubleshoot for the future. It's like, what do you do with Fred's contract? I think losing Fred hurt them. Just being down a point guard or somebody that can take care of the ball. I think they were, the Rockets were one of the worst teams in the league in regards to assist to turnover ratio, assist percentage, and a lot of other categories in regards to ball security. So, um, yeah, I think that just being able to have another creator that can also shoot the ball, because the Rockets shot the ball well this year, which is, I think, is one of their strong points. Yeah, I think all of those things are going to be key for them. So, yeah, just figuring out that point guard position, and adding more shooting, I think never hurts.
Absolutely. They were definitely missing it. And I think, in a way, the series against the Lakers was definitely a big loss. But I think it was a win. We got to see what the kids could do without Kevin Durant being on the court, right? Because that was the biggest loss they actually suffered after Fred in the playoffs. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, everyone is saying, well, they shouldn't have lost to a 41-year-old LeBron and a bunch of role players. But I'm like, you gotta understand, this is the NBA. These guys are in the NBA for a reason, and whether you see them as being quote unquote sorry or anything like that, these guys 9 times out of 10 are better than you, and these guys 9 times out of 10 have carved out a role and they're good at their role.
Yep.
I think Rui Hachimura, he showed me a lot in this playoff series. I think he's gonna get paid in the offseason. I forgot if he's a restricted free agent or unrestricted, but regardless, I think
Yeah, I'm not
somebody's
sure.
going to throw some money at him. Austin Reeves is very solid. He came back in game 3 or 4, and he was another player to add to the roster that put the nail in the coffin for the Rockets, and they showed up. I think Amon Thompson did his thing, of course. Like I say, Reed Shepherd, he showed me something. I think the one person that actually did disappoint me a little bit was Şengün. But I'm not a believer in just giving up on him. A lot of people want him traded for whatever reason. I don't think I'm there yet. I think it's a difference between him and Jalen Green from when they traded Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks for Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, since the Rockets are in off season, what are one or two key offseason moves in free agency, the draft, or even a trade you think Houston should target to take the next step, especially around space and defense or complementing their young core?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to get another guard in there that can handle, score, and provide more defense as well. Like, I mean, I think obviously, Amen can handle the ball, Reed can handle the ball, but I think just having another creator, I think would really help, that team. So that will probably be my target if you're willing to, deal Fred's contract and get off of it. But yeah, I think a lot of it's going to center around, what the update is on Fred, what they want to do with Fred. I mean, I'm not sure what the Rockets are going to do, but I like Fred a lot. I thought if Fred was healthy, I think that Rockets team has a chance to get to the Western Conference Finals, if everybody stay healthy. But yeah, it just really depends on what he's looking like, and obviously those guys in house will have a better pulse on that. But yeah, you gotta figure out what you're gonna do with that. But yeah, I think defensively, I think you got pieces to defend. I think you can add some rim protection. Like everybody wants rim protection, but I think you got all the pieces you need to be a really good defensive team. I think the shortcomings were just offensively, and a lot of that had to do with KD being out towards the end.
Last and final question, my man. I think. Any specific players in college or G League or even international you scouted that you think would be a great fit in Houston's offense or in Houston's system, rather?
I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head of who would be a great fit at Houston right now. I think the kid Joan Behringer would have been a good look for them, because he's young, he's athletic, he protects the rim, could be a lob threat. I think that would have been, that's something that I think Houston could use, man, if they had somebody like that, coming down the pipeline that they can kind of develop. There wouldn't be a lot of pressure on him to have to play so much because you got Şengün and you got some experience, bigs there with him and Adams and whatnot. But yeah, I think having a lob threat big would definitely help. So he's a name that comes up.
So I do recall during the NBA trade deadline, everyone was sitting back. Every Rockets fan, hopeful, was wondering if they were going to make a move. They didn't make a single move. I think the front office felt pretty confident in what they had, but I wanted a point guard. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wanted someone else outside of Reed Shepherd and Aaron Holiday that could go out there and go get a bucket or set up the offense or whatnot. So one player that I actually did want that got traded during the trade deadline was actually waived was Tyus Jones. And the only reason why is because I think he can do those things naturally. I don't think they needed anything else, and I'm right now opposed to the Rockets going star hunting unless it's a young player. I'm not a fan of pairing Giannis with KD and then trading Şengün and maybe Jabari Smith Jr. for him. I think we should stand pat on that front. But I agree with you. The guy you mentioned, I actually like him. He's definitely a lob threat. He's solid, man. That's solid. And I do recall someone in the Rockets fan base mentioning them going to get him, and of course because he's not necessarily a household name, they oppose that. Yeah. So, Mr. Goods, this is my bonus question, and it's the final one. So you successfully made the transition from player to professional scouting side and now coaching. For those of us like myself, aspiring to become an NBA scout or a D1 assistant basketball coach, what is the single most important skill or proof of work, like building boards or writing reports or scouting talent, you would advise us to focus on today to get us noticed by a NBA front office or by a D1 head basketball coach?
Yeah, I think documenting your work is extremely important. You know, if you're writing reports, you should know exactly how many reports you've written in whatever time frame. I think that social media is a beautiful thing, and you can circulate your findings or your content. So I think circulating your work is important. I think circulating it with quality is even more important because, you know, if you're going to put something with your name on it for the public to see, you want it to be as high quality as possible. And I think that people that fall short of that, it's usually due to a lack of effort more so than capability. Like, you got to take the time to make sure that whatever you're putting out there is up to standard. So, yeah, I mean, I think that whether you're trying to get into coaching, whether you're trying to get into scouting, if you want to get noticed, you got to put high quality work out there and, you know, try to find a difference that makes a difference. See what everybody else is doing that people are engaging with and try to do it, but do it better, or try to do it and put a different spin on it. But you know, there's many pathways to success out there, and, you know, you can go out there and find it very easily. But, you know, if you're somebody that's a lesser known in the basketball world, the best way to kind of get in front of people that'll see it is social media at this point. So just like you see YouTubers and content creators do it all the time, and, you know, then you see them on the red carpet and whatnot. Before that, they started off with 5 followers or whatnot, and they just stayed at it and did not care about the lack of engagement, and they just kept believing and kept working.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Goods, that is all the questions I have for you today, my man. Once again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, on the show, to talk to me about becoming an NBA scout and a D1 assistant basketball coach. And also talking to me about the Houston Rockets. Guys, that's it. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the show. And also check out Mr. Anthony Goods podcast. You can actually type his name in the YouTube search and find him. Also, my main man, one final thing. Give out your socials. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, first and foremost, I appreciate you having me on here, TJ, man. It was a pleasure. And, yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, AntGoods87. And like I said, on YouTube, you can find me there. Just type my name in. And if you want to, got a website, anthonyjgoods.com. You can find my book over there and, you know, some other links to my content and a lot of other things as well. But I appreciate your time and the platform.
Not a problem, man. All right, guys. As stated before, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. This your boy TJ signing out. Peace.
Cut City Connect. Cut City Connect. Cut City Connect. Yeah. Houston Rockin' News, everything you need. You know we keep it in check. Scores, interviews, and player stats. Yo, we keep it in check. Subscribe to see what's next. It's Cut City Connect.